Thank you. Good evening. My name is Misun. And this is Thursday evening meditation class. I feel like as I'm talking, I'm like a little tilted, so maybe words coming out of my mouth, because as I said some time ago, there's nothing contrived in what I do. I'm not all that tech savvy, and we're doing the best we can. And I think for those of you who's following, I did have the podcast called "You're Still Going to Die." And it still exists, and I don't know which one meshes with what, but this is what I've been posting on Facebook as well as on YouTube. So the subject that I want to talk about is, actually, we've been talking earlier, Catherine and I have been talking about the fear factors, things that people say. So I think it's a good subject to talk about. The world's going through a huge shift. I mean, I'm sure everybody can feel it. My case, I think I heard that somebody was, I said, oh, is that what it is? I've been having a lot of pressure headaches but I do a lot of meditation. So the shifting in the atmosphere, it makes a huge difference. So today it's not as bad as it was, like, say, a couple of days earlier. So with the 7th planet lined up in Aries, and that's going to be enough to cause the pressure in the atmosphere. So we are going through a lot of emotional changes, cleaning up, and I was just talking about my personal cleaning up, things that I hung on to for a long time, and I'm sure it is for every one of us. And that kind of, I thought would be a good subject to talk about, because all of us stay in places that it's time to move on, but we don't. And so what keeps us there, whether it's in the relationship, whether it's in the job, or anything and everything. When I say relationship, I guess that covers a friendship and things. Sometimes it's not bad or good, it's just time is up. The usefulness or that what you needed is no longer there, because we have outgrown the situation or even the people sometimes, because we all go to the different direction. But we don't know enough to end it graciously and not feeling guilty, because the whole world has been all about guilt. So, well, if I want to say, no, thank you, I don't want to come, I feel bad because I feel guilty, right? This is what everybody's been saying, like, I feel guilty for saying that, because you can say no and finding a right word. And that is where learning and how to navigate, that is skillfulness to how to say no and take care of yourself and also take care of the others, but not doing things out of guilt. I've been hearing so much in this week about that my parents was expecting something different. And I would ask, what is that? Well, they want me to have a secure job, and they want me to have this, and they want me to have a house, and da-da-da-da. So this is the path I've been following. And my answer is, who doesn't? Who doesn't want to have a secure job, enough money in a bank account, and have a nice place to live and everything? Of course, everybody does. But what price are you going to pay for getting those things? Everybody needs a shelter. Everybody needs a food. Everybody needs a water. That's given. But again, it's what price are you willing to pay to get that? Maybe you can negotiate. Maybe you have to be skillful and make, that planning those things. And my husband told me a long time ago that he had what they call FU fund. And then I asked him what that was, and he explained to me when he was a young boy, he saw a movie, and I think it was Cary Grant, who had $1,000 bill that tucked in his coat and like sold in, so he can always say no and walk away. Well, that made a lot of sense to me. So I've been using that and giving that advice to many, many people that I encounter. And just per chance, and I'm going to try to bring it all back, is that last night we had sound healing here. And I thought it was really interesting. There was one gentleman who I was the first time, and the rest was seasoned. They've been coming for a long time, but particularly 3 other young people who was here. So that made it 4 relatively young people. I would say they were all under 40 or somewhere close to that. And one of the engineer said, and another young man asked, because they didn't necessarily know each other quite as well, when I introduced them to each other, and when she said, what do you do for a living? And she said, I'm an engineer, or something, or I might have said it. And he said, I don't know anything about engineering. And she says, I'm thinking of leaving my job. And what popped out of my mouth was, good for you. And she said, I've done this before. So she had her FU fun, if you want to say it, and she kind of planned it. She said, first time was rough. She said, I have no idea what's waiting for me. I don't know where I'm going to, but I feel like it's time to leave. Time for something different. And I was so profoundly impressed and moved by it. And my reaction wasn't like, oh my God, do you have another job? What are you going to do? And any of those things, because I knew she was the type of personality that she would take care of certain, before you jump off the whatever bridge, that she knows she has a life jacket on or something like that. So, but why should you stay in the job? Why should you stay in situations that begin to become a chore, begin to become like a noose around your neck? And so 3 other young men, there was another young man who was new here, said, he was telling me out of nowhere, and was just to me, he said, well, I had a job that I really did not like, and it wasn't resonating with me. Isn't that beautiful, somebody to say, it wasn't resonating with me, so I left. I thought I needed to do something different. So then he was telling me the different job skills that he got, in different way that he has found a way to make a living, and he's doing great. And I was like, oh my God. I said, that is so wonderful. He said, I didn't want to stay in the place that it was, I said, sucking life out of you? And he said, exactly. So there was 4 people, relatively young people, standing talking about how to negotiate in this life to make a living, find joy, and living life, purposeful life. In contrast to that, is I also had a friend who I knew over 30 years ago, kind of came into my life, and presently I'm not in touch with him, and because he's going through a lot. But he's in his 60s, and one of the things, and he is so unhappy, and he's going through so much in his life, and the loneliness and sadness, whatever, and all that, and really serious. And one of the things that came out of his mouth was, I stayed in the job driving, it's a trucking company, for 42 years, because he used to be one of the drivers who used to come to my studio. That's how I got to know him. He said, for 42 years I worked for the company. I hated it every single day. Can you imagine? I think you could imagine, as I could imagine, because I think most people in my age, we know people who stay with things because we are frightened, if you want to really call it for what it is what makes you stay in place that is making you so uncomfortable. Can you imagine saying, I've been in the job that I hated for 42 years? Well, no wonder it drove him to drinking. Well, I don't think that was the case, but because you needed some kind of outlet. What a sad life, because this is the most precious thing, is to be able to live, to experience, because we are going to die. And when I say die, I mean we are going to exit this body sooner or later. Or I heard somebody said, that just wait a minute and things will change. And that is true. You never know, like you make a plan an entire day and you think, oh, the day's gonna go this way and that way. Well, it doesn't. I remember last year or 2 years ago, and I mean, things happen every day, but this was a bigger story, was a friend of mine's daughter was visiting here from France, but they were all in my class, and they said, oh, my dad's coming home because one of the pilots who was driving to work that morning, and she was a relatively young woman, she had a car accident and she got killed. And so everybody was so grief-stricken, they shut down I guess, that airport at the time. So literally, that young woman had no other intention other than driving to work that morning. She never made it. So that is for every single one of us. That's not a sad conversation, that's not a dark conversation, it's a reality. So when you look at the reality of that fleetingness of life, it behooves us to ask, why am I here? What makes me happy? What is your goal? Goal meaning, I'm assuming everybody wants to be happy. Everybody, right? Everybody wants to be happy. So how are you going to get there? And staying on the things or in the relationships and things that doesn't work for you, doesn't work for either one of you, is not a smart idea. And sometimes navigating, so other young people who was here, they're barely living, just making ends meet. Like, how are they going to get that a few fun so they can make those moves? So, the way we live has changed. So at this point, maybe, I have become so American, thinking like, I need my space and I want my big space. Sometimes we have to compromise. Sometimes you have to give up something. So find the right roommate, find the right partner. It's like when I think I gave an example last night was, if you find the right person to marry, it's a heaven. If you find the wrong person to marry, it's a hell. If you find the right roommate, it works beautifully. So get somebody that you know you better than you know yourself, to kind of help to navigate, not like, oh, sure, move in with me. That might work out perfectly, it may not. So you may have to use some judgment. Because so many of us, and so many of you will hopefully be listening, the changes that you seek is you're going to have to make an effort. You're going to have to make assessment. But your life is worth it. My life is worth putting that effort and making the decision, that bold decision. Because when what used to be in olden days, when you have a job like the man I was talking about, that has a pension and it has a security, and everybody would tell you you're crazy for leaving. And you begin to wonder that, am I going to find another job? Have I lost my mind? So all those things, it's like, people stay in a relationship, women stay in a bad relationship. And I'm not saying everybody just, roll your carpet up and get out. But think through, there is always option. There's always choice. The free will is that something given to every one of us, and we so fail to use it in practice because mostly we are driven by fear. I think you agree, and if you have a comment to make about that, I would love to hear from you. But because think about it, how many things? So literally for me right now is that change and the shift is coming. It's literally, I found myself cleaning up, saying goodbye to people that no longer need to be in my life, or vice versa. And I don't feel bad about it. I feel like, okay, it's time. Why struggle? I've been teaching yoga for 16 years. And again, as I'm saying that, it's like, oh, have I made an announcement? But I come to a conclusion, I thought about like, okay, I've been at this for 16 years. And I think it's time to move on. And as I made a statement last night, I said, for me, at my age, I'm going to be 73, so if I have another 10 years to do the work, I love my work, but it had to be creative. It's a little because I've been creating it as I go. I didn't go just to school to get the skill. I went to school to learn things, get the skill, but then bring it into the public was different game. And so I had to figure this out as I'm going along. But that's for everybody, not just for me. But it's really finding joy in that what you do. As I said, that I stayed in this one thing for long enough, and it's time to leave. So I asked myself, part of me saying, well, it's not that bad. I only do it once a week, blah, blah, blah. And I was going kind of checking, I was talking myself out of it. So then I asked myself, what's the upside? What's the downside? What is the fear that is keeping me tethered there? Because that is what it is. It's tethered there. That I'm unable to just cut the cord and step into that new space that is waiting for me. And I realized a little bit is a fear. This is a familiar place that I've been doing and I can go. But you know what? I don't want to become something I dislike eventually. I want to leave when things are good and let somebody else bring in the new light and new things. So it's been a lot of that shift's been going on, like cutting out certain classes. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to reinvent this or that, because there's always room. There's always room. But not getting paralyzed by the fear of unknown, because unknown is great. It's a surprise. And change your vibration, because if you keep bemoaning, oh my God, what if? What this goes wrong? What that goes wrong? And that is then you are vibrating the frequency of all that fear, and that is the very thing that you are going to get. As much as I teach, as much as I practice, I didn't really fully understand about 2 months ago. Oh, is that how it works? So we have to keep practicing. But it's that elevating. So instead of living in the fear, like yesterday, I had numerous things I'm doing. I need to file the tax, and I need to do this. My computer wasn't working, so all of a sudden my stomach started churning. And I had to just kind of check myself and say, I've done this every single year. It's going to be okay. And if I don't get it because something went wrong, so what? I have to pay a little bit of fine. Like what? Is the world going to come to an end? So I had to kind of like talk myself off the ledge from going into that rabbit hole. And so that is for everybody. So when I talk about these things, I'm sharing with you because we have to experience life, and that's what we come to learn, is to experience life. Train's going by. So you might be hearing train more than you hear me. So in order to experience, so take it as what it is, experience, not a dread, not the triumph, because if you're not going to triumph anything unless you do it, unless you step into that uncomfortable place. So that, for all of you who's out there wondering that what is happening in this world, the job insecurity is here, the relationship insecurity is not sure, you can't find the housing because it's so expensive, there is a way. People have been doing for thousands and thousands of years. But instead of being in the fear mode and allowing the fear to dictate how you make your decision, because always like, okay, this is safe, so I'm going to hang on to this. Well, when you hang on to that, then everything else dies. So you have to put that in the neutral place. And remember that we're all going to die sooner or later. It could be next minute, it could be 10 years from now, it could be 50 years from now. God only knows. But the thing is, don't let the fear drive your life, because this life is a gift. That this life is that we fought so hard to get here, and the last thing you really want to do, because it's not logical to be so fearful and always trying to get fun of your problem that hasn't even happened yet. So figure out, and if you, I don't know, if you really hate the job, figure out another job and don't stay there. If you feel like you have to stay there, then make a plan. Say, I'm going to leave it, have a timeline, 6 months, year, and what do I need to do to make myself safe enough that I would have enough money so I could live until I find another job or I could create another job. So make a plan. It's not, I'm not telling you to just, just jump off and say, oh, it's all going to turn out. Maybe it will, but maybe it won't. But we are still human, so you do have to make a plans and things like that. But so it really is basically the changes in the air, and you are wonderful. We are all very creative, and you can figure this one out. And if not, find a buddy who you can talk about. Not talking about small talks, but think about, what do you want to do with your life? How do you want your life to look like? How do you want to live your life? So that conversation that I will have next week, but I would love to hear from Katrin, so I'm going to turn this around a bit, because I'd like to know the fears that she had and how did she navigate, because I'm sure, if nothing else, between her and I, we have a bit of a life experience because we've been on this planet a little longer than a lot of people. So I would love to hear that. So I'm going to turn around. Catherine, I think they can hear you, but
Yes.
meanwhile, I'm just going to turn this, rotate this.
Hello.
So, yeah, so how do you navigate in terms of fearful things, in your life? And
I suppose I've always been able to just forge ahead, I've never been paralyzed by fear. I've always known when I'm uncomfortable, that means that I need to change. So I've been good as far as that goes. As far as the fear thing, I think I get more comfortable than fearful. So I guess that would be my thing.
But that's your experience.
Yes, that's.
But when you were younger, how did you navigate?
Not very well. When I think about it, yeah, it was a lot of impulsivity and things like that, because I wasn't centered, I wasn't grounded. I couldn't see any big picture, It was more like kind of just flying by the seat of my pants almost. So
right, which is like most of us, that's like hoping this would work.
Yes.
That's where we're just jump
right.
from.
Right.
But I think the life itself teaches wisdom. So I think both of us have some of that. Is that when you look back at your life, what do you realize? Like all the fears and all the things was, well, I guess it taught you a lot of things, teach us.
Oh,
but at the same time, that how much you put yourself through unnecessary pain.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yes, looking back and what was important, and none of it was really, you know what I mean? Everything was important and none of it was important,
right.
so to speak.
But you also, we get to recognize, at least I do, in terms of that, what drove you, because it was a sincere fear.
Yes, absolutely. Or either feel of failure or,
or not enough,
not being enough, or
right.
yes, all of that. Sure, yeah.
So I think that what the young people today has, maybe perhaps you and I did not have, is that because the companies they go to work for doesn't give them any security, so it give them, they don't owe them their loyalty as much as, say, on our age people. When you went to work for a company, you were kind of tethered and you feel like they were looking after you, so you have to look after them. So I don't know, because now you have to take care of your own retirement and things mostly. So I don't know if that's the driving factor, but they seem to have a little more impetus to move and try to figure.
And I think that, and that did change, I think, even with maybe, like, I was at the tail end of the generation that stayed at a job for 30 years or whatever. That was, 40, 50 years. That was my mom and dad's generation. So, and, so I was always looking ahead, So I was fortunate. I've been fortunate in that. So, yeah.
And I mean, also that takes into even the relationship. Do you see, even from your children, or things that traditionally you stay in relationships? Well, the man had a job and the woman had a job, it was all very stifling, right?
Yes.
So they couldn't. So now there seem to be, and we're not finished yet, but with navigating, there's a little more room for the sense of what doesn't work. That they don't have to put up with. This is not a death sentence.
Right. Yeah, sure.
In today's world, right? Which is wonderful.
Right, it's a little more fluid for them. Right. Yeah, because we were still living up to, many different societal expectations than what are now. It's a little, things go a little easier. But I kind of broke a lot of molds too. So, that's why I said I'm not exactly the person that was in the constructs, like I always broke out of the constructs,
Right. But I think also sometimes it gives us a reflection when we look at it, because end of the day also, the changes comes, and change has a high price to pay for all of us in different ways. Because you do see so much more, seem to loneliness and depressions
Oh,
and things
yes.
in today's world, a sense of a little more desperateness.
Yes.
So one hand, when we stayed in the confines of that can't leave, that maybe we weren't quite as lonely because there was other. Now, because you break off, so that's a lot to...
Yes, and the social media has played a huge role in
Right.
the loneliness factor, you know,
Right.
where there isn't interaction.
With another human.
Right, and actually sitting and talking and, you know, like what we're doing even right here, right now, you know.
Yeah.
Everything is online. And I mean, it's convenient and this and
Yeah.
that, but I think it loses a lot, you know. These
Well,
kids,
exactly.
they've
So I think we
lost
gained a lot, but then we lost a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
this is right now is how do we come into that middle place, and that's what
Right.
makes place like this, conversation like this, is so important to
Absolutely.
have.
Yes.
Because when you can think, but if you cannot express and have a response going back and forth,
Right.
this all in your head, and you feel like you're going crazy,
Well,
maybe.
Absolutely. Sure.
So-
Sure, and to you know, have bounce ideas around, because I don't pretend to know anything, much less everything. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm open to, you know, looking at things in many different ways, and I've always been very open to that. I've always, you know, if I know it in my heart to be true, like we were talking about earlier, that's, you know, one thing, but otherwise, you know, I'm open to all
Right.
different types of things.
Yeah.
You know,
And I'm gonna
ideas and
just keep the camera on that angle and just talking because I know it can be heard. But I think in the end of this conversation, we're gonna end it, and it's what conclusion that I would share with everyone would be that, again, what I emphasized earlier is find somebody that you can talk to, trust, have open communication, run by your ideas. Don't make decisions in the vacuum.
Right.
So find the community, and because you're not crazy, that you know.
I love that. Don't make decisions in a vacuum. I'm going to turn it around
Yeah.
for you.
You know.
There she is. There
Okay.
she is.
And you know, yeah, don't make your decisions in a vacuum. Find the buddies, because like even last night when it went on, to me it's very, very obvious. The two people needed roommate. The one has another roommate. I don't feel like it's very matching to him, and other one is in need of a roommate. And I said, hey, I think both of you should become a roommate. I said, this is where I come in. Somebody like me, I happen to know you, but if you hire me to assess the situation, because they have a common interest, they're nice people, they are ethical people, you know, just they have so much more in interest, and they're close to their age. And also I said, you two should be a roommate. I said, you two would make a great roommate. So again, find a friend, find a place like this, somebody to talk to, and you'll be surprised how many people are out there who's willing to listen. And sometime maybe you can listen to them as well. So that is for tonight, and thank you so much for listening, and good night, and I will see you next time. Oh, and I should say, I guess you can subscribe, you can, what else they do? You can subscribe and like.
subscribe. Yeah.
And so that's it. Good night.
Good night.